Thank you everyone for joining us for this Architects Toolkit session. My name is Susanna Plaisted. I am the Senior Manager for Salesforce Well-Architected Framework, and I'm joined by my colleague.
I'm Tom Leddy. I am the Product Director for Well-Architected Decision Guides. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Of course, our forward-looking statement applies. Make sure you're making your purchasing decisions based on what's available in our products today. And this is what we're going to be doing for the next 20 or so minutes. We're going to start with talking about why it's really important for architects to have a toolkit, so you're not making things up as you go, so you don't feel like you're not sure if you're making the right decision. Then we're going to talk about the tools that are available from our team to make your life as an architect or as an aspiring architect easier. We're going to do a couple of demos to show you how to access and use these tools, and then we'll give you some next steps to continue on your architect journey. Okay. This is why architects need a toolkit. Even in this wonderful agentic future that we have all found ourselves in, being an architect is still not easy.
It is not. I mean, all the nice things that you're seeing about in all these other sessions with AI and agents and everything, it's making things easier for the business, but somebody still has to figure out how all of the technical components to make those things work in the first place fit together.
Yep. How do you get all your data together?
Exactly.
How do you set up those automations? So that's why at Salesforce we have the Well-Architected and Salesforce Architects team. That's the team that Tom and I are on. And what we do full-time is ensure that anyone doing architectural work, whether you have the title of an architect or not, has the tools and resources available to do their best work and to create healthy, well-architected Salesforce implementations. There's lots of tools available on architect.salesforce.com, but we're going to focus on the three main tools that we think are essential to be in your toolkit. The first of them being the Well-Architected Framework. Second,
Architect Decision Guides.
And then we'll round it out with Salesforce diagrams so that you know how to communicate your ideas with your stakeholders. So let's go ahead and dive right in. The first tool that's essential as an architect working with Salesforce is the Salesforce Well-Architected Framework. So this framework contains guidance and best practices and a really opinionated stance on how you should approach architecture with Salesforce products. And ultimately, it's going to help you design healthier solutions. Now this guidance, it's available in white papers. It's also a set of principles, architectural principles that should help you step through your thinking as you solve these really challenging, meaty problems. And this isn't guidance that our team came up with. We have a lot of amazing, brilliant, smart people on our team. But we also worked across Salesforce. So we worked with the folks who look at the error logs in our core database, and they see these spikes. And we're like, what are you seeing cause all these spikes? We're working with them to figure out those issues. We're working with our folks on the front lines in customer success and professional services who work with some of our most complex customers. And also product managers who actually define the strategy and know how these products were their purpose and how they were built.
Exactly, and actually I think that's true for all of the resources we're going to talk about here today, right? We did not write all of these ourselves.
That's a great call, yeah. And we also, of course, involved folks like you in the ecosystem who are truly on the front lines and working directly in a customer with your customers if you're a consultant. And everything that you see all throughout architect.salesforce.com actually, but especially the framework, are rooted in the core principles of trusted, easy, and adaptable. So Salesforce Well-Architected, as I mentioned, series of white papers, that framework, and we have it localized in Japanese. We have folks from all over, as you can see, 138 plus countries using this guidance, and it's available for free for everyone on architect.salesforce.com. Another set of the well-architected tools, so that's sort of that guidance, but we also have a set of tools that we're continuing to expand all the time. And the one I wanted you to focus on today and to know about is the Pattern and Anti-Pattern Explorer. So in our well-architected white papers, there's opinionated guidance, there's sort of why you should care about these areas, but there's also a section that contains what you should do, patterns you should follow, and anti-patterns you should avoid, or what are the things not to do with Salesforce. And we heard in our first release about 2 years ago now that these anti-patterns, what you should avoid, are the things that folks are most wanting to return to and search for and access. So we rolled out the Pattern and Anti-Pattern Explorer that you can search by product area. So maybe you're just starting with generative AI and you want to know what you should avoid. you can go to the pattern and anti-pattern explorer, and we'll take a look at that in just
Yeah.
a second in the demo.
And I will say this is one of my my favorite parts of well architected because we know, when I first started even using the framework, the patterns and anti-patterns super valuable, but you had to navigate to those tables and look, and then we knew for a while that as we kept adding more and more patterns and anti-patterns, which we're doing regularly, it was going to get to a point where we don't need a table with like 50 rows, right? It's easier to find what you're looking for here and get.
We want you to be able to hop in and get what you need and get back to work. So with that, I'm going to show you how to access these tools. As I mentioned, they're all in architect.salesforce.com. If you're looking for well architected in particular, you would of course go to the well architected tab up here, and you'll be able to see an overview of the principles that we've laid out, why we've laid them out the way they are. And I'll show you that because I think it's valuable. So these are the 3 pillars of well architected, and everything in well architected is in priority order. So you can see how you should approach trust. So focusing first, for example, on security, why you should be building solutions that are easy to adopt and easy to use. And of course, adaptable. So how do you build solutions that adapt as we are changing faster than ever right now? So within this structure, you can then, of course, drill into one of the white papers that goes through how you should think about trust as a Salesforce architect. And again, really opinionated stance, not just like the help docs, which are amazing, which go through all the different ways you can approach a problem and how to set it up. This is saying the optimal way to approach different areas of Salesforce architecture. So this white paper is a great read, as Tom mentioned. So if I go into security, for example, this secure white paper, great for sharing with your most technical stakeholders at your company. No trailhead characters here. It is decidedly a different tone. It's a more technical tone, appropriate for when you need to share an idea. You don't want to have to start from scratch and type it up. You can share these technical white papers with the folks who need to sort of get on the same page as you. But as Tom mentioned, these patterns and anti-patterns used to live sort of buried in the bottom of these white papers and took a little while to find, which is why we rolled out the Pattern and Anti-Pattern Explorer. So I'm going to scroll back up here and go down to well-architected tools. You can see right now we have this one tool, and don't worry, we're working on other tools for you as well. Here, if I click on the well-architected Pattern and Anti-Pattern Explorer, I can see those same dimensions, trusted, easy, and adaptable, but I can actually search for the pattern that I want within that dimension. I can also search based on product area. So if I want to search for Data Cloud or Einstein or just the platform, for example. So if I search for Einstein, I'm going to be able to see what good looks like when I'm rolling out my generative AI solutions, where to look for that pattern, that anti-pattern, and how I can learn more. So all of this, again, available to you on architect.salesforce.com, but that's not all, because Tom is about to talk about decision guides.
Decision guides. All right, so well-architected decision guides, which are actually, the word well-architected is there, they are part of the overall well-architected umbrella, and they're integrated with the framework. We're actually working on integrating them even more tightly as time goes on. What decision guides do is, the framework that Susanna talked about is your foundational architectural best practice guidance and patterns, anti-patterns to look for in your org. Decision guides are for when you need to make selections between products or tools. And as we all know, if you've been working in the Salesforce ecosystem for a while, Salesforce has a lot of different products that kind of have overlapping functionality, and sometimes it's not really clear on when to use one versus another.
And even within the same product, right? There's different ways to implement. If you've been to any of the Data Cloud sessions so far at Dreamforce, you can choose to have batch or streaming, and how do you choose the right thing?
Right, and what is it going to mean for you if you choose one decision over another,
the
right?
Trade-offs.
So, so we help you to analyze these things, and then we also have the guidelines for investments. So we talk a little bit about, is there something that's going to be end of life, or is there something that's going to be added to a product roadmap, so that when you're making your decisions, you know not only what's available today, but what's going to be coming in the future. And I think one of the keys here too is, we say detailed technical information. This is really true across all of the tools on the Salesforce Architects website, but these are not sales tools. We're not recommending that you purchase a product, even though some of these may require additional licenses, and we'd call that out wherever it is, but it really is more of a just straight up comparison of the technical attributes so that you as an architect can make your best decision about what tool to use for what scenario. So why are these important? Well, if you're choosing the right tools, you're going to have a higher return on investment. You're going to have lower total cost of ownership. Your solution is going to be a lot more maintainable. It's going to add more value for your business over the long term. And then, kind of goes in line with higher ROI and lower TCO is you're not going to be purchasing products unnecessarily.
Yeah, and the onus is not all on you, right? You don't need to make this up based on all the information you're gathering at Dreamforce. You're going to do that, but then you can also turn to these resources and sort of bounce your own gut instinct against what we have for you.
Yeah, exactly. And then as you've probably seen in other sessions, our platform is continuing to expand. We're adding new products. We're acquiring companies. These choices are only going to get more and more difficult to make, just off the top of your head of just knowing things. So the guides are going to be kind of a grounding place where you can make those, you can analyze those trade-offs and make your decisions. So our current decision guides, we've got a guide for asynchronous processing that just came out in the last few weeks, as a matter of fact. We've got event-driven architecture, data integration, building forms, and record-triggered automation. And what I'd like to do now is actually show you one of those guides.
Let's do it.
So also available on the Salesforce Architects website for free, under decision guides. You'll find all of the ones that I just mentioned on the last slide, and I'm going to go into, actually let's go ahead and go into the newest one, asynchronous processing. So the way that these guides are structured is they've got an overview of, what is this topic? Why is it important to even be making decisions about this topic as an architect? What do you need to know? And then our section on key takeaways, which I like to call it is the TLDR of the guide, where if you look at these decision guides, some of them are 45-minute to an hour-long reads. You shouldn't have to read the entire guide just to be able to make a single product decision. So these are some of the high-level bullet points that you need to know. If you learn nothing else from the guide, these are your main things that you're going to want to take away. And then when we scroll down, we start to see what tools are available, some of the kind of high-level trade-offs. So like I mentioned, do you need to purchase additional licenses to use this tool?
Do you need developers?
Yeah,
do you have developers on your team?
One of your key decisions is, do you have the right people that can implement this and the right people on staff that can maintain it? Because if not, you might want to either reconsider what tool you're purchasing, or you might need to think about what your team structure looks like so that you can make sure that you're actually going to be able to support this.
And my favorite part is that final column, which is the additional licenses required. That's in most of our guides. When you see these products, we're being crystal clear about, is this something that comes with the platform? Is this something that requires some additional licensing?
Exactly, and like we said before, these aren't necessarily, they're not meant to be sales guides, but it is something that you should know if you need to purchase additional licenses to be able to use the tool. So, and then we get to, what are the key decision points that you're going to need to know when you're selecting a tool? And then as we scroll down a little bit more, what we find is
this is the part where you can really nerd out. So we get pretty technical in all of these. There's especially deep in the paper, we go a little bit under the hood in this one especially, right? To talk about how our processing engine works and what you need to be aware of.
Yeah, one of the things that we talk about is, within the Salesforce platform, and asynchronous processing is the example guide that I pulled up, but we can see that how does this actually work, and what are some of the limitations on asynchronous processing in general, so that when you're making your decisions, you're making an informed decision because not just what does this tool do, but why are there certain limitations on it compared to maybe a different tool that might not have the same limits. And we kind of do a deep dive into that as well.
Yeah, and I love this diagram. So having these beautiful diagrams is something relatively new, right, in our decision guides.
It's actually something I've been trying to add because the guides, if anyone has seen them before, the original versions of these guides, they were pretty dry. It was like a big wall of text that it had great information, but it was going to take a while to read through all of that and digest it. And having some of these visual aids and some of the other, the diagrams and a few other graphics and things that we're putting in, they're breaking it up, making it a little bit more digestible and also just easier to follow. And one of the other nice things about these diagrams, and it's a nice transition into our next tool, is that the diagrams themselves are available on the Salesforce website as part of our diagram framework.
Yes.
So I can click into one of these, I can see a little bit more details about it, and I can also open it in Lucidchart. But before we do that, let's actually talk about...
Speaking of diagrams, that is the third essential tool that you as an architect should be aware of. So Salesforce Diagrams is actually our team's first product that we came out with, because we heard that folks in the field wanted a way to create diagrams that were consistent, that were really professional looking, and a standard, so that they didn't need to be looking at someone else's diagram and like spend a lot of time figuring out what was going on. So Salesforce diagrams came out about 2021, and we just refreshed the diagram area of our site, and we're going to highlight some of those new things for you.
Yeah. Let's see what. Oh.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So our diagram framework has three main components, right? So there's our standard diagramming components, which are all the different cards and icons and things that make up a diagram, the connectors. We've got tools and templates, which we kind of just saw one of them, which is some pre-built diagrams. You can open them up in the diagramming tool of your choice, of the ones we support, and modify them according to what you need for your own organization. And then there's our reference architectures, which are things like our data models and some design patterns that are available also for free on the Salesforce.
Yeah, so let's start with the first one, standard components. So these are, like I was talking about, standardizing diagrams and not having to hunt and peck for the right thing. We have the set of standard components that folks building diagrams for Salesforce should be using. A header, there's a great standard to always have a header that talks about the purpose of the diagram, the audience for the diagram, and also a legend. So if you're using icons to represent more density in your diagram, that you also let the reader of the diagram know what you meant by picking and choosing that icon. Speaking of icons, we have all of the Salesforce icons for our products available, and so for some of our like actions too, things like flow and bots and all that great stuff, we have icons for those that you can access in any of our tools, Lucidchart, Elements, Miro, and we also do, even though Google Slides and PowerPoint are not diagramming tools, but we know that's the reality, right? That a lot of folks, especially if you're working with a customer that only has PowerPoint and Google Slides, you might be working there, so we've got you covered no matter where you're working. And on the right side, connectors and cards, we have standard connectors if you're familiar with ERDs, entity relationship diagrams. We have those connectors in there, and then also cards to represent those entities with some styling based on if you want to represent attributes within an object, for example, like objects and fields, or maybe you want to highlight something on that object. You would use the footer to say there's large data volumes in this object in my data model. So all these available, and we'll do a demo in a little bit on how this fits together.
And one of the other nice things is that on the Salesforce Architects website, we also have guidelines for how to use all the different connectors and what the different symbols mean, for example. And then the specific diagram types, so we break them down into 4. One of the things is with diagrams is you want to make sure that you know who your audience is. And I can tell you early in my career, I used to make these big giant monster diagrams that I tried to cram every piece of information I could.
Wait, it's not better if you cram everything into one single diagram?
No, it's not actually. It ends up looking like something that only you can decipher, and maybe not even that, right? So what we're actually saying is less is more a lot of times with diagrams, and one of the keys to determining what amount you want to put in is who is your audience, right? So if you think about a capability map, that's going to be something that you're going to show more to business stakeholders because it has business values, business drivers, but not a lot of technical details. We've also got our system landscapes, which are our high-level, enterprise-level architecture with some details, and then we go a little deeper into solution architectures that have the a little bit more fine-grained details, and then process flows that are specific steps within a process.
Most detailed, yeah. And we're going to do now a demo of that third area that we talked about, which is our amazing data models. So if we go to diagrams and you go to the data model gallery, this is where you can search for any particular product. So we were talking a lot about Data Cloud today. Maybe you want to search by product area for Data Cloud, and you'll see everything that we have available for that particular product. Do you want to talk about these data models briefly?
Sure. I'm going to go ahead and click into one. So let's say the Data Cloud overview. So this is the actual Data Cloud data model. And one thing that's important to just like all of our other resources, this is maintained by the actual product team that's responsible for this particular data model. And we've got a regular process. It's updated pretty regularly. You can see this one was just updated a couple weeks, about a week ago.
Awesome.
And what we can do is click on this link and open it, and it'll open it in Lucidchart. And what's happening right now is it is creating a copy since this is Susanna's laptop, she's going to get an extra copy of the Data Cloud data model, which we can then customize, right? So let's say you are building something on top of this that you want
Custom
to add.
entities, maybe you're only talking about a certain subset of the functionality and you want to do that. So you can customize this in any way you want. The final thing we'll highlight briefly for you is that, so this is an example of Lucidchart. Lucidchart is a diagramming tool. You can sign up for a free Lucidchart account, and when you do, you get access to all of the shapes that we talked about. You just have to search, go to more shapes like Tom did, search for Salesforce Architecture. And my keyboard is differently spaced than Tom's, that's fine. Salesforce Architecture, and then once you do, you'll be able to add that header, all of the icons, the cards to your palette, like I already have. Yeah,
Yes.
that second one. There we go. Cool. So then you can drag and drop them, use them, and don't have to start from scratch.
Yes.
Cool. So I think we go back to slides now. Yes. So we're going to wrap it up. So the 3 tools that you saw today, again, are available on architect.salesforce.com for you to get started with. There's lots of other architecture sessions at Dreamforce, and today at 4:45 in Moscone West on the 3rd floor is the architect keynote. We're going to be building live diagrams using some fabulous light boards. We're going to have some of the engineers who built Data Cloud, who built all of our new Gen AI features, and a fabulous panel too where you can ask questions to them.
We're going to get some nice behind the scenes looks at a lot of the other things a lot of the other sections you're seeing today. We're going to talk about the architecture that enables them.
Yeah, so with that, I think we're
good.
Just going to thank you for coming and let us know the feedback you have. Thanks so much.
Thank you, everyone.